Hot Days by Griffin Rose on AO3. Episode 36, Chapter 8, Summer Camp, Part 2, Attack. If looks could kill, Bakugo would have murdered Izuku 5 times over by now. Every time he had to go off for remedial lessons, his glare was a few degrees away from vaporizing Izuku on the spot. But he went with Shouta without a fight, and Izuku found he could breathe easier when Bakugo was out of sight. Maybe he should ask Shouta to talk to Bakugo about that. A hero shouldn't make people anxious when they're around. Then again, Izuku was probably the only one getting that feeling, and it was definitely personal between them two. So, there might not be anything for it. He just needed to try and forget about it. Luckily, the night's activities proved to be the perfect thing. The Wild Pussycats had put together a test of courage between the classes, and Izuku couldn't wait until it was 1A's turn to scare 1B. He had some animals with some very large teeth that were sure to scare the pants off of them. But first, 1A had to take their turns through the gauntlet. Izuku was paired with Todoroki, and they were one of the first groups to head out into the dark woods. It wasn't that scary for the most part. The moving severed heads made him jump, until he remembered the student in 1B with the quirk, and then he laughed. That was a good one. The severed head glared at him and rolled back into the bushes. Todoroki just stared after it curiously, squinting his eyes. Izuku pulled him along. They picked up their little tags from Ragdoll and continued on the second half part from the starting point, both alert from the next scare. The gas was a surprise. I didn't realize anyone in 1B had this kind of quirk, Izuku murmured. He and Todoroki weren't running, exactly, but they were definitely making good time. It's an interesting strategy, Todoroki said. We've already seen it, so what do they hope to accomplish now? I guess it depends on the type of gas, Izuku said. Maybe it's halogenic? That didn't sound right, though. He definitely would have remembered if one of them had that type of quirk. The second he found out, he would have hunted them down and asked about it. Finding a member of 1B already passed out tossed the idea out the window anyways. He's still breathing, Todoroki said, one hand on the kid's neck, to check his pulse. I think he's just knocked out. Faint vapors hovered in the air around them. Not enough to knock them out, yet, but Izuku felt a little lightheaded. Looks like he was trying to get away from it, but he didn't notice it in time. Izuku pointed to the path of broken underbush leading to the kid. This isn't from another 1AB classmate, then, Todoroki said. They wouldn't have used their quirk if it incapacitated their own classmates. Izuku was inclined to agree, but if it wasn't another camper, then that means it was someone else. Someone who wasn't supposed to be here. He shared a look with Todoroki. This is bad, Izuku said. Todoroki nodded and reached out for the unconscious kid's arm. Help me get him on my back. Izuku stepped over immediately, and they maneuvered the camper on Todoroki's back. Besides the fact that Todoroki acted first, the kid was the same size as Izuku. He wouldn't have been able to carry him very far. Not to mention if villains were behind this, they might need to fight. Todoroki could still use his quirk while carrying the camper. Izuku wouldn't be able to. They had just started on the trail again when Manday's message pierced their heads, confirming what they already found out. There were villains here. Worry and anxiety mixed creeped into his stomach. How did the villains find them? Hisashi and Itoshi didn't even know where the camp was. None of the students had known until they arrived, and even then they didn't know exactly where they were. Of course, the GPS on their phones could tell them that. Next question. Why were the villains here? What did they want? They were just a bunch of kids. What could any of them have done to encourage any attack of this scale? He glanced at Todoroki beside him, the only obvious answer he could think of. He was the son of the number 2 hero. Kidnapping him would make a pretty big statement, not to mention the terrible position it would put Endeavor in. Oh God, he didn't even know if Todoroki's life being in danger would actually make Endeavor do anything he didn't want to. Endeavor was so twisted he might just willingly give up Todoroki to avoid being weak or losing his hero license. He wanted to throw up. We'll be fine, Todoroki said, seeing the look on Izuku's face and mistaking it for something else. I won't let anything happen to you. Izuku laughed, dry and a little hysterical. I'm more worried about you. If they were going to kidnap any of us, you're the one that makes sense. Todoroki's face twisted, like the first time he ate a takamori. I know. This isn't the first time I've been a target. I know how to protect myself and what to do. Oh, that only made everything worse. Now Izuku really wanted to throw up. Besides, we're isolated out here. The chances of a villain finding us are slim. The others are more in trouble. They're easier to find. Maybe Todoroki thought he was being helpful, but that was very much not what Izuku wanted to hear. This meant his dad and everyone else would be fighting, and he wouldn't be able to help. What if there was another Nobu? What if his dad got hurt again? Izuku needed to get back to them, needed to protect his dad, his classmates, and Koda. Izuku stopped dead in his tracks. What is it? Todoroki asked. Koda, Izuku whispered. He's probably at his spot again. He spent most of his nights up there to avoid hero students. He wouldn't come down until they were all back in the lounge. Todoroki blanched. He shouldn't be alone right now. If he even knows what's going on, the villains could use him against us if they get to him first. Izuku bit the tip of his thumb. I know where his spot is. It should be easy to find from the air if I morph. Then you need to go, Todoroki said. I can't just leave you alone. They'd just discussed that Todoroki might be a target. Like hell was Izuku leaving him behind to fend for himself. You can't carry two people when you morph, Todoroki pointed out, hefting the student on his back to remind Izuku of his presence. They weren't going to leave him behind either. I can fight. I'll be fine. What's Koda gonna do if someone goes after him? Nothing. Izuku doesn't know what Koda's quirk was, if he had one. But he was only a child. It wouldn't be strong enough to actually defend himself against real villains. He shouldn't have to defend himself against real villains. But Todoroki... But Shouta... Izuku, you're the only one who knows where Koda is right now. Todoroki said. It has to be you. Go. I'll be fine. I promise. He hated logic. If you get hurt, and I mean even a scratch, I'll never forgive you, Izuku stated. Todoroki smiled and nodded. Understood. Now go. Izuku doesn't know if he was making the right choice. He's worried this night be the last time he ever gets to see Todoroki again, and the thought almost made him change his mind. But Todoroki at least stood a fighting chance if a villain came after him, and there was a good chance another one of their classmates might stumble upon them and help. So, as hard as it was, Izuku forced himself to take a running start and jump up, morphing into a hawk mid-air and climbing up into the sky. He must be fast, and then he'll make his way back to Todoroki. It would be fine. The cliff was easy to find from the air, so was the fire currently burning through half the forest. It was quickly turning into a repeat of the USJ. How many villains were here? He turned towards the cliffs, looking for Koda's ledge. His eyesight as a hawk let him pick out the different ledges from even this distance. It also let him see two figures in the approximating location on a cliff he wanted. One was tiny, child-size, definitely Koda. The other was 3 times larger, concealed by a hooded cloak, one hand reaching towards Koda. He never beat his wings harder, pushed his maximum speed. He screeched when Koda didn't move, at least providing a distraction. The villain casually turned his head towards him, like he didn't have a care in the world. It was almost a shame the villain wore a mask. Izuku would have loved to see his face when a hawk flipped and turned into a kangaroo, slamming into him with a kick. The villain slammed into the cliff wall, mask flying in a completely different direction. Izuku rolled in his landing, morphing back into a human and jumping in front of Koda. "Are you okay?" he asked. Koda stumbled. "Damn, didn't expect that," the villain said. He stood up and brushed the dirt off his cloak. "Guess that makes you the shapeshifter Shigaraki wanted dead." Izuku's brain did a record scratch. He would have known Shigaraki would take his involvement at the USJ personally. At the same time, Shigaraki had attacked them. Of course they fought back. Izuku had just been more desperate than the others. Still, it was chilling to know that a major villain personally wanted him dead. The villain in front of him took a step forwards, and Kota whimpered. Izuku tampered down the shock and fear. He could deal with emotions later. He needed to be logical and practical right now, just like Shouta. Priority number 1, protect Kota. His own safety was a close second. Before I kill you, think you could help me out? We're looking for a brat named Bakugo. Tell me where he is. I'll make your death quick. Bakugo? What the hell did they want with him? They couldn't ransom him? Did that mean Todoroki was safe? I'm not telling you anything, Izuku growled, crouching down lower and getting ready to morph. He tossed his phone back at Kota. Call Shouta. Kota fumbled the phone, just barely not dropping it. The villain rushed them. Izuku morphed into an elephant, meeting his brute strength head-on. The villain retaliated by growing more muscles over his skin, gaining more and more strength until he could hurl Izuku to the side. Panic flooded him, and he morphed human again, turning his tumble into a sprint board to leap back towards Kota, who was only able to raise the phone like some kind of flimsy shield. The pure terror in Kota's face broke Izuku's heart. He never wanted to see that on a kid's face again. The villain tore the phone out of Kota's grip, crumbling it in his fist and letting the broken plastic pieces rain on the ground. Sorry, but I can't let you call for help. Welp, there went Izuku's only chance at backup. His options were now to grab Kota and run, hoping that they could outrun this massive villain, or try and beat the villain in a fight. He chose option A. He could always try and fight later if it didn't work out. Sliding under the villain's arm, Izuku grabbed Kota and jumped off the cliff. What are you doing? Kota shrieked. Trust me, Izuku yelled back. There were plenty of trees beneath them, so he morphed into a gorilla and used the branches to swing them down to safety, only slightly tearing a muscle in his shoulder. On the ground, he set to shaking Kota back on his feet and morphed into a human again. That was insane, Kota murmured. You're insane! Yeah, but hopefully the guy isn't also... Laughing propelled the breaking branches over them, and the horror sank into Izuku's stomach. Apparently this villain was just as insane as him. The man landed a few feet behind them, using his extra muscles to absorb some of the shock. That was gusty, kid. I like you. Let me introduce myself properly this time. My name's Muscular. Izuku swallowed and stood in front of Kota again, jumping from the cliff that had been his trump card. His speed would be hammered by an extra body, and with all that muscle, there was no telling how fast Muscular was. There was no guaranteed Izuku could outrun him, especially after the galling training he had all day. But jumping from a cliff should have given them enough of a head start to find help. So much for that. He couldn't even tell Kota to run for it, not when he didn't know where the other villains were. He might save Kota from Muscular just to send him right to someone else. Kota, take cover, Izuku ordered, steel filling his voice now, flooding through his spine and crushing any hesitation he felt before. Priority number 1, protect Kota. If they couldn't run, then he had to fight. So by God, he would fight. Muscular grinned. Good. Looks like you're finally getting serious. I've been itching for a good fight. Kota had ducked behind a tree, so Izuku didn't let Muscular psych himself up any more than that. With an opponent, Izuku knew, he might play into a banter. He might have made declarations of his own. But this was serious. If he lost this fight, he'd be dead. Kota would be dead. And that wasn't an option. He didn't have room to morph into anything big, not with all the trees around them. Smaller meant he'll be more agile. And that was 90% of his fighting style anyways. Shifting into a tiger, he swiped lethal claws at Muscular, tearing through the layers of muscle. Muscular grunted, and the torn fibers reformed. He flexed. You're gonna have to try better than that, kid. You've gotta be kidding me. Had that guy even felt that? My turn, Muscular said, throwing a punch at him. Izuku dodged it, but Muscular's hand left a crater in the ground. He was having vivid flashbacks to his exam, fighting with All Might. This was like that, only 1,000 times worse because it was real. They danced around each other for a bit. Izuku mauled him mercilessly, hoping to find some kind of limit to how Muscular could regenerate his muscle fibers. If the limit exceeded, Muscular had trained it beyond any natural endurance. Muscular left more craters in the ground. He snapped trees in half with his punches, He galled at Izuku to hold him still, patience running thin. Izuku's speed and morphing were the only reason he wasn't dead. If even one of those punches landed on him, he'd be in real trouble. Whenever one came close, he shifted so his body was no longer in the line of fire. There had been a lot of close calls. It didn't matter how close they were, as long as they didn't hit. He could play the long game, wear Muscular down. Hold still and die, you little tweep. Muscular feinted with a right jab, causing Izuku to dodge straight into his left hook. The punch sent him flying sideways into a tree, knocking the breath out of him as he collapsed in a heap on the ground, human again. He missed when he morphed back. He bit his lip, too, and felt the blood in his mouth. His ribs, though, felt like fire. At least one was definitely broken, if not two. Maybe three. Hell, Muscular's hands were huge. Maybe it was four. Izuku didn't know. All he felt was pain. Between his ribs and his back, he didn't even want to move again. "That's all you got?" Muscular asked. He stomped forward. Izuku dragged his limbs under him, wincing as he side-pulled painfully. Oh, definitely 2 ribs broken. Not good. Morphing with broken limbs was a terrible idea. And there was a goddamn murderer about 4 feet from him. "Can't even take a punch? How lame," Muscular said. He flexed his fingers. "Oh well." He took his time kneeling down and reaching for Izuku's throat. Izuku gasped around the pain in his chest, begging his body to ignore the pain and let him move. A rock hit Muscular's head. "Leave him alone!" Kota yelled. Izuku and Muscular both turned to look at the boy, peeking out from behind a tree, lip lower, trembling, and tears in his eyes. "Huh, forgot about the brat. I'll kill you in a minute, don't worry." Shit. No. Shit. No. Bad. Priority number 1, protect Kota. He had one fucking job. Like hell he was gonna fail at it because of one goddamn punch. He felt his entire torso felt like it went through a meat grinder, so he could potentially skewer his own organs by shifting with broken ribs. There was a kid over there, depending on him to keep them both alive. Bakugo was back there, the target of this whole attack, and Izuku might be the only one who knew that. His father was back at camp, expecting him to come home. Izuku would not make him cry. He wouldn't die here. That wasn't an option. So even though it hurt, even though it was dangerous, Izuku shifted into a snake, wrapping himself around Muscular's hand as he reached for him. The other hand immediately came down to grab his body and tear him off. Izuku sank his fangs into the muscles before him, the rattle of his tail shaking. "You little shit, let go!" Muscular roared, releasing Izuku's body to punch his face. Izuku didn't have time to pry his fangs free before the fist slammed into his snout. Stars danced in his eyes, but then Muscular swayed. Fucking shit. Real rattlesnake venoms only took seconds to affect a person. It would leave them numb and lightheaded, blur their vision, and make them nauseous. The more a person moved, the worse it would be. If left untreated long enough, it could even kill a person. Izuku's venom wasn't an exact replica. It was weaker, and would take twice as long. Theoretically, it still should be lethal, but Izuku would never abandon someone he'd bitten like that. It was the last resort. This was actually the first time he'd used it on someone. Muscular grabbed Izuku just behind his head and tore off his arm, flinging him vaguely towards Kota. He was too large to be knocked out by Izuku's venom. There was too much muscle, and it was taking longer to truly affect him, but he was definitely affected. His steps were unsteady. He swayed back and forth, shaking his head back and forth. Izuku forced his body to morph back into a gorilla. His ribs ached, and his face hurt. But he was almost done here. So even though Izuku's agility was way down, it didn't take much effort to land a solid punch upside Muscular's head and knock him out. He went down in a loud heap, and there he stayed. Oh wow, okay. I never thought about using venom from animals, right? So obviously the rational one would be, rattlesnake venom. Snake venom is really poisonous and potent. Black Widow. Can Izuku turn into insects? Because Black Widows have a really poisonous, I need to think, fast-acting poison skewed by animals. Frog. A rainforest frog. Those shits act fast from what I've heard. And if not a rainforest frog, there's always a Komodo dragon. They're really fast, and their bites are super deadly if not treated immediately. Frog are also deadly, and you don't even need to bite those things. Those things don't even need to bite you. Just touching their fucking thing can kill you. I'm not sure how fast. I think if I searched up how fast frog venom is, I will be put on some watch list. Wouldn't be the first time. Look, I'm a writer and I need to know things like how fast somebody bleeds out and how much I could have somebody bleed out before they die. And surprisingly, actually depends on the type of cut. I learned a lot of stuff that day. Anyways, it depends on a lot of stuff. It depends on the cut. It depends on how clean the cut is. It depends on how much is gushing. It depends on how much adrenaline the person is going through, right? Because if they're sedated and they're not going through as much adrenaline, their heart isn't pumping as fast, and that affects things. It depends on if they're on a certain medication. That could also affect the way that their blood flows or how their heart pumps, or how their blood clots as well, right? So there's a lot of things that can change how fast one bleeds out. Obviously, some of the variables, the changes are literal seconds, and some of them are minutes, if not hours, right? And then there's also the thing of, was there a tourniquet? Is there not a tourniquet? Stuff like that. It was really interesting, and I quite enjoyed it. I'll say that. I quite enjoyed that. But I'm pretty sure I probably ended up on some watch list. Until my FBI agent saw me also search up a simile for said or other ways of saying said, and they realized, oh shit, okay, not a serial killer, not a potential serial killer, not someone trying to kill, just a writer. Yeah. It also helped that I'm on Google Docs like 24/7. Yeah, I need it. I swear to God, if there was ever like total screen time, like every single thing on your device, on every device you have, and how many hours you've spent on one application or app or website, Google Docs would be the top. That and AO3. I think they're actually kind of on par. Like, they're both right there. They're both like fighting for the top spot. And I'm not sure which one would win. And that says a lot, considering I, so far this year, have read like 5 million words. Hold up, let me check my AO3 wrap. It's still not out. I still have a couple months. I'm locking in. I'm trying to read as much as I can. I'm trying to get Shindeku to get up there right now. It's not the top ship. It was for like a couple seconds. It's like a fighting race. Yeah, 5 million words. Although I am literally 70,000 words from being 6 million, right? So I'm literally one book's worth of fanfiction away from 6 million, which I know for a fact I'm gonna read that dude, with this fic alone, I would complete that. Actually no, Shake on It, it wouldn't be enough to complete that, but Shake on It and Remember Me, yeah, that would complete it. That would be enough. That would be enough, right? Plus the other fic that I read the other night, which was like 10,000 words long. Sometimes I read short ones. I've noticed I read shorter ones. But yeah, no, I've read a lot. It is a problem. I've read a lot. But I wonder how this is gonna go. Is Bakugo still gonna get kidnapped? I don't think he's gonna get kidnapped, considering the fact that he's in remedial classes. Meaning he is in that classroom, so nobody in that classroom got hurt. It was just that initial attack with Dobby, so I think Bakugo is safe for now. For now, he's safe, and hopefully it stays that way. Okay, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.